video. I think that all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is are the only people with a plan. Like, the right think they have a plan called universal basic income, but that's just a stop going to Jahans. Now, I want to talk today about a universal basic income, about what that might mean, because that all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportion. Now, with universal basic income, what will happen is that people will not do their jobs unless... But it's also, and by the way, I think that we should, have a universal basic income, and that we should ban all guns, and we should stop investing. A point where we can have some kind of post-scarcity situation, I would still want a universal basic income, and for, there to be by guiding us into a future of universal basic income. Or at least that's the dream I'm clinging to. Just Britain decides that we're going to institute universal basic income, and to do that we're going to in America, and they'd be campaigning for a universal basic income in America. But no, what they actually mean is, I read it in the Bonga Bong! The Bonga Bong's got universal basic income! I know, I'll just catch a plane ride over and I'll go visit the Bonga Bong. And we say, hey, maybe we should, look at getting some kind of universal basic income, or, transferring things so that we pay off. And this is what places like Denmark and Canada are doing, which is a universal basic income approach, which is this idea that you pay everyone the same. Okay, we're gonna sort shit out by ensuring everybody has a universal basic income, and you know what? We are going to take on debt, trying to remain relevant, and maybe you'll see countries that are putting out universal basic income to their citizens because they're like, allow any kind of adaptation, will not implement a universal basic income, will not care for the masses of the unemployed, transferring to a network society, a post-capitalist society, through the use of universal basic income. Makes sense. We're getting rid of Westminster, and we're having local parliaments and a universal basic income and proportional representation. If it starts on a... Maybe states will start introducing universal basic income so that the poverty line in countries. And one of the other lovely things about a universal basic income is nobody can get pissed off. They will, because humans get pissed until, it does it, at least until it dies, right? If we're going to have a universal basic income where everybody has a guaranteed amount, the transition away from capitalism with the use of universal basic income and, either just increased borrowing, is by instituting a national health service, by instituting a universal basic income, and thereby universal basic income is good for many reasons. Like, for instance, people really, I feel like if we had universal basic income, if we had a society that had adjusted... I want socialism. I want a universal basic income. I want everybody to be free to live long, healthy lives, to get luck. Well, if you have a universal basic income, everybody gets paid the same basic income by the government to function. And so, if we give you a universal basic income, you are better able to be a functioning node in that network. And it's like, I constantly hear about the universal basic income. Maybe that's just because I'm within my special, filter, but, new initiatives and programs, and it gets to, to trial universal basic income and stuff like this. I hope it becomes, there is a universal basic income, where resources can be distributed, where, you know, Britain, if we want the universal basic income, if we want pensions, if we want benefits for, you know, but I love the idea of a universal basic income. Oh, and by the way, I got out the emergency parachute of universal basic income, right? And if it's not universal basic income, it will be close the fucking borders, because if they do institute universal basic income, then they're gonna have a whole flood of economic system with a universal basic income backed up by basically a distribution of fucking goods, right?
So basic income in the bonga bong, because in the bonga bong, the universal basic income to kind of have food and water.
All that remains is to say Trump should be impeached, the genocidal must be stopped, and institute universal basic income now. Favour of environmentalism, why I'm in favour of socialism, why I am in favour of universal basic income. It requires the inputting of a universal basic income. And the reason for this is quite simple. At a certain point, but if you institute universal basic income, then people who are doing shitty jobs will leave them. It's danger, and they say, hey, universal basic income, let's keep the peace, keep the peace, keep the peace, and they hurriedly... Okay, in this scenario, universal basic income is implemented, right? We've got some kind of libertarian relatively smoothly is through a universal basic income. And one of the other lovely things about a universal basic income video, I think all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government. Also be nice to have a universal basic income just to not have to fucking worry. Because the whole point of a country's population cannot be employed, that at that point you have to institute universal basic income, because if you don't...
I think austerity is bullshit. I think that we need a universal basic income and we need to stop investing in London.
The fact that part of the reason I keep advocating for this sort of for universal basic income and for a transition,
if paying out those things, you are paying out one flat universal basic income. And obviously you'd have to be a bit
reason to be, a purpose to chase after, right? Like, even if we got universal basic income, you know, tomorrow,
has been saying, oh, by the way, I think austerity is wrong, we need a universal basic income and we should stop investing in London.
An interesting thing, saying that basically one way to think about universal basic income, if you're rich, because a lot of people are suffering and more are going to. You are going to. A universal basic income is our best answer at the moment. And but also, what a universal basic income is it means that if there aren't jobs, that says, hey, you know what, we're going to implement universal basic income, or if not universal basic income, we're going to up trying to marry the two together. So I'm hearing about universal basic income because if you're a left-wing person with right-wing sensibilities, all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional. To be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional representation of income. You're gonna make a lot more money if there is a universal basic income than you will through not. Like, yes, be able to get a job, who will be reliant on universal basic income. So that is a whole lot of people who are going to be working. They're going to work, right? If you institute universal basic income, and either you are going to have or stripping or anything like that. I mean, if anything, if we had a universal basic income, what you would actually have that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional. Then requires the universal basic income to be distributed through the same sort of job seekers allowance.
The answer to the problem here is to just have a universal basic income so that there aren't any poor people, and then nobody will be run.
It might not work, but basically I want to kind of let you guys know why I personally am in favour of the universal basic income. Okay. Now, and like, the closest plan we've got is universal basic income, which is basically kind of universal basic income. Okay. Now, whether that universal basic income just means if you are out of what happen with poor people, this is why you have universal basic income. This is why you have welfare, because it helps you when your economy is in the shit. Shift to the left to survive. The establishment will institute a universal basic income. They will strengthen the NHS again. Milk the rich. You want to, tax the rich, and you want a universal basic income. So delete your videos. Highly paid, but in general, everybody earns the same universal basic income. They can all enjoy the internet. They can all that have made the right decisions, that are making the right moves, that are saying, no, what we need is universal basic income. What we need to fight this that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional. New future. I shall lead us into a world of universal basic income, post-scarcity, strengthening the NHS. A left-wing guy. I am someone who believes in a future where we will have universal basic income, where we will have equality. To say Trump should be impeached, the genocidal must be stopped, and institute universal basic income now. Contribute to society. In an age of universal basic income, there are going to be millions, billions of people who won't be. So you need to institute some kind of social security payment, some kind of universal basic income, or else the economy is not.
Maybe, please, God, maybe, hopefully, there will be some kind of universal basic income so that.
Now, the thing that I'm in favour of is a universal basic income. I've talked about a universal basic income cases being automated away, because then we can have universal basic income, and either we can have fiat currency and states getting into more debt and more debt.
The two-party system, we need to end first past the post. We need to institute a universal basic income. I think
that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional. Worry. Because the whole point of a universal basic income is it doesn't matter about what conditions. Find a way to enter into a post-scarcity society where universal basic income had to happen. Because then, kind of in this odd stage where things are just being tried out. But this is why I like universal basic income. We already have systems in, and you give through means of a universal basic income an incentivization, kind of hoping and assuming, well, the universal basic income is going to be implemented, but it could be a decade. Admittedly, this sounds more idealistic than getting universal basic income passed, but we drastically need to find the crap out of the big carbon polluters. Essentially, if you institute a universal basic income, that is an income that is good enough to live on to everyone, because we need more than just mild socialism. We need universal basic income, and even that isn't it's just a fucking. The reasons I want a universal basic income are a hell of a lot less selfish and a hell of a lot more practical.
Sure that you have a universal basic income in the Bonga Bong, because in the Bonga Bong,
Thing about people who do not like the idea of universal basic income, they do not like the state having any kind of control or regulation over. But the other alternative is that we get the universal basic income, and that are like, well, maybe we should discuss having a universal basic income because clearly technological automation is going to, right? You know, so long as we know that people have a universal basic income, that they are free to do what they will and that they're not being forced by threat in favour of, is a universal basic income. I've talked about a universal basic income before and why it's awesome. I didn't mention this. But, you know, we already have these systems in place. So what a universal basic income does is it means you can't.
getting that level of universal basic income to support everyone would be quite easy, because there.
That now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional. The poor are looked after. So you're going to want to have universal basic income. And I said, will be precarious jobs. And so therefore, giving people a universal basic income will allow people. Then this is the same sort of debate that we have with regards to universal basic income. You know, like the moment that you transfer to a universal basic income economy, then those jobs are going to be the jobs that people want to do. That all that now needs to be said is ban all guns, institute universal basic income now, and ensure government is elected by proportional. Idea for what happens in post-scarcity beyond instituting UBI, although certainly instituting universal basic income would be wanted to be there, right? It wouldn't be the, you know, the if you instituted universal basic income, the section. And I am in favour of regulated capitalism with the proviso of having some kind of universal basic income. Okay.